Welcome back to our channel.
The Jen and Sean Show.
The Jen and Sean Show. So in this week's episode, we went to the Yayoi Kusama exhibition at the NGV.
National Gallery of Victoria.
National Gallery of Victoria, even. This was back in April. We initially didn't really know a great deal about the artist. My esteemed friend Deb, hi Deb, if you're listening, had raved about Kusama and said that she was the dot lady. That was how I got introduced to her. So I didn't really know a great deal, but it was coming to the end of the exhibition's run and the tickets were a lot cheaper than they were back in December. So
cheap
we thought,
tickets, baby. That's what we want.
Nothing else to do on a Sunday. Let's go in and get some culture. So off we went.
I know nothing about this artist except that she was Japanese and that was pretty much it. But yes, again, we decided to trot on in there on a Sunday and we're here to tell you whether it was something that you should go along and see, whether it was a yay or a nah. So hold on to your butts. We're going to take you through a little bit of her background and then take you through images, as you can see here, of this interesting exhibition. Yayoi Kusama is Japan's most iconic and provocative contemporary artist, globally recognized for her hypnotic polka dots, mirrored infinity rooms, and deeply personal art that confronts mental illness, trauma, and the concept of self-obliteration. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
She was born in 1929, still alive today. Kusama voluntarily lives in a Tokyo psychiatric hospital, a decision she made decades ago and from which she continues to create some of the world's most sought-after artwork. Her work, often playful on the surface, is rooted in hallucinations she's experienced since childhood. Beneath the whimsy lies a darkness, themes of depersonalization, obsession, and the erasure of identity, especially in her soft sculptures and sexually charged installations. Titillating. Which shocked conservative Japan and even unsettled Western audiences during her rise in the 1960s New York. Controversially, Kusama was overlooked for years in the male-dominated art world despite pioneering avant-garde techniques before her more famous peers like Andy Warhol, who some say borrowed heavily from her innovations. Now she's reclaimed her throne even, with blockbuster exhibitions and sky-high auction prices, proving that once dismissed as madness is now revered as genius. I did a quick check and her highest priced piece was $10.5 million.
Oh, which one was that?
The Nets.
Oh.
Which we'll cover off as a component of that.
Okay.
Her story is one of radical vulnerability, gender defiance, and relentless fight to be seen on her own terms. Pretty heady stuff. So I got that as a bit of a description from the web after going to a show. So I wasn't really au fait with it, but we really found a lot of provocative artwork.
A lot of it was, there was parts of the exhibition that were definitely very sexually overt and you could see that straight away. But there were some areas of it as well that was a bit more subtle, and it wasn't until you sort of read the bios about each piece and then had a bit of a look into it that it became obvious what she was actually doing. Super interesting though, and she was into everything.
Well, it was almost a flashback to the 60s as well. It was like a lot of fashion is involved with her art. There's a lot of references to her time in New York, but had, just amazing impact over there as a young artist. She was only 30 odd when she was there.
Yeah.
But the exhibition was packed with people, but also a lot of kids, which sort of lent into its playfulness that it was coming across. It's really colourful. It really showed off quite a broad spectrum of different art. So art, as you think, is, paintings on the wall. There was plenty of that. But there was prints, sculptures, installations.
And you could see her transition as well. A lot of her earlier stuff was a lot more thought-provoking, not quite as colourful.
I had no idea how big this exhibition was going to be. I thought it might be a few rooms. But it spread over two separate sections of the museum or the gallery, which was quite amazing of what they were actually being able to achieve.
Yeah.
So the installations themselves, you walk through and there's a lot of mirrored balls on the walls, on the ceilings, different colours, super bright. So yeah, if you're a kid, you're going to get a bit of a kick out of it.
She played with the concept of infinity in quite a few of the works as well, where it was sort of no endpoint defined. She likes pumpkins. It's
definitely a theme that she's really embraced, and quite full-on sculptures, which are really amazing to see, made out of, I think, acrylic plastics and things like that.
Yeah.
Which, as you walk into the NGV, there's a massive one which you can walk under. It's just ginormous.
Yeah, that was cool.
But then there's ones hanging on the wall, which are, again, huge, but very geometric when you get up super close to them as well. And a repeating pattern. Again, she's all about the dots and polka dots. And it was quite fascinating. You'd think you get a little bit blasé of it after a while, but I found that I was really looking forward to what's around the corner next, what she's going to do.
It's like an infinity room, I guess. So you walk in and the walls and the ceiling and the floor are all yellow with black polka dots of different sizes. There's a big box in the middle that's mirrored all the way around, so you can't really distinguish where it starts or finishes. No. And then you go up through the little viewing box on that thing to look inside it, and then it's another infinity room essentially inside that as well. It was really well done.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, it really was. It did transport your vision and, imagination as to, what this person is thinking. And the more I learned, because there are lots of videos around and as you're reading about her life, and you can just imagine what sort of mental health she was going through as an early 20-year-old, 30-year-old, and then just to leave New York and then live 50 years or the next 50 years as a patient, voluntary patient.
But still creating.
Yeah, prolific.
Yeah. A lot of really recent stuff too. There was something I was looking at the other week, and I think George Clooney had appeared in one of her outfits that she'd done. Yeah, it was quite cool.
But as you got to go around, there was more sort of traditional sculptures and artworks and big canvases with amazing pattern work and just...
It's phenomenal.
Some of the scope of these things were huge. So one of the big themes she had was talking about infinity, and there's one piece called the Infinity Net, I believe, and that was the piece that sold for $10.5 million. So her work is very 60s based, I think, from that sort of psychedelic era. You saw that there were, again, paper cutouts and news articles of her going to various and collabs with fellow artists. And they're all, some of them are, where they're all naked.
Yeah, the nude sit-ins.
And being,
they did lots of nudie runs back then.
Yeah, really embracing the 60s culture. But if you've ever been to Japan and heard of the Team Labs experience, it was very reminiscent of that. And I think we're thinking about it the wrong way around. I think Team Labs has drawn on...
From her, yes. Yeah, definitely. The red room, I don't know what you'd call that. Red room with white polka dots was Dot's obsession. That was 1996 to 2024. Stickers, vinyl balloons, mirror dimensions, variable collection of the artist. And she says, when we obliterate nature and our bodies with polka dots, we become part of the unity of our environment. I become part of the eternal, and we obliterate ourselves in love.
So Yayoi grew up in a rural area?
Yes.
And
in Matsumoto,
yeah.
In Nagano.
And she was really obsessed as a child with nature and the forms that were growing around the farm.
I think,
And this really transcends into a lot of her work. And I really found quite compelling some of her artwork that was on the walls that were synthetic fibers, acrylics and different things there. But a lot of it is very sexually based as well.
Yes.
Which is pretty confronting. And if you're not quite open-minded, then, you're going to be potentially offended by it as well.
Well, she puts that back to her childhood as well. Apparently her father was something of a womanizer and her mother would send her to spy on him. And she had a lot of trauma that she carried, obviously, as a result of that, and quite a lot of trust issues and whatnot. So... and she's talked about how that impacted her later in life, but that's where a lot of those ones, that the influence of that comes from.
A lot of the sculptures were just really fantastical as well.
They were fun.
Huge, really colourful. Just you could look at them for ages. Yeah, it was almost Dali-esque as well.
Yes.
How it sort of had a lot of dripping objects and things like that. But I did like the use of not necessarily latest technology, but just the basicness of creating that infinity aspect.
That was really well done. She had it with the ladders, and then in that room with all the chandeliers and then the coloured lights. Yes. It was like that coloured garden almost effect that was very Team Labsy.
Yeah. It tried to create that full body experience, I think, or disorientation. And the NGV did it quite well, where you'd go in there as small groups and they'd allow you a couple of minutes to experience it and get that feeling of detachment, I suppose.
Yeah. almost not timelessness. There's a word for being in a space without boundaries, like no walls, floors, all that sort of thing.
And a void.
Kind of, yeah.
But with a single object.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were very popular. It was
a lot of people there.
There wasn't anything that kind of overtly disappointed. But for a woman that's in her late 90s, she is still very much involved with these exhibitions, with all the videos of her still participating and drawing out stuff. So there were multiple rooms that we're able to walk through, weren't there?
It was really, really good. And, interactive vibe.
Yeah. Probably my favourite one was the big yellow sort of tentacle. It was kind of like Cthulhu, the big,
kind of wanted
entity
to climb
that's
on it.
come in. Yeah, definitely reminiscent of a jumpy castle.
Yeah.
Very playful.
Yeah.
And you did want to hug it, and you did want to just, give it a big squeeze or bounce off it. Because it did transport you into just a very, very different environment. And kids loved it. They were running around just, oohing and ahhing and all the rest of it.
We didn't bounce off it, by the way, just in case.
No.
To clarify.
No. Team Labs, you can do that a little bit, but not so much in
not
this
with
one.
Yayoi.
No. So a lot of mirrors in the ceiling, again, representing that whole infinity aspect of it.
Yeah.
And detachment. And it was kind of cool. That was probably my favourite highlight of it.
There was a section there, I can't remember what it was called, but part of the display was her actually, she was singing about one of the pieces or something, that she'd actually written this, if we could call it a tune or a song to go with it. There was no music accompanying her. It was just her singing about the artwork. But yeah, she's wearing this vivid red bob cut wig, a bright red lipstick and the red top with the white dots on it. It was, quite fantastic.
Yeah. And again, a lot of polka dots. That was her signature move, right? And that was throughout. And I think we ended up just going, we've got to take some of this home.
I know. Some of it just looked amazing. You wanted to sort of, get a big chunk of it. If they had had replicas of that in the gift shop, I would have been all over it.
Replicas of
that coloured polka dots and stuff.
Yeah.
That would look great hanging on a wall.
It would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big eating flower that was almost Little Shop of Horrors-y, but covered in colourful polka dots.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So plenty of rooms to go through. We were there probably for about 2 hours.
I think so, yeah. Lost track of time though. Very easily. Just wandering, going, wow, what's next?
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
I came out of it really wanting to know more about her.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't normally do. I mean, you had the dick chairs and the dick stuff that was going on, and that was kind of like, oh, that's a bit out there. And I thought that was like one and done. That's what she was about. And then going and seeing the bigger rooms of what she'd done, the sculptures.
Pieces.
They were phallic in nature.
But they were also, like, if you look at the one where you're in the room with the mirrored floors, you've got these brightly coloured shapes coming down from the ceiling and up from the floor with polka dots on it. That's also very, you could look at that and go, well, that's the influence from being on the farm for years, because it's like things growing, you know. There's so many different elements to it. But it was good to see the transition, or I think the evolution of her from where she started and how she's evolved over time and how her artwork has changed over time as well. It's like you're sort of watching a growth almost. Yeah,
well, there was definitely a technology lean with using a lot of the LED lights and mirror balls, and again, that whole sensory overload of it. And it seemed to escalate with each room that you went into. And we ended up in the final room, which was the flower obsession room.
That was excellent. Everyone got given a sticker as you walked in of a flower, and you basically got to be part of that particular installation by placing your sticker somewhere in the room. I don't know how some people managed to get theirs on the ceiling.
Oh, I don't know.
Like there must have been shoulder
quite
riding
tall.
going on.
I reckon there would have been shoulder riding, throwing their children up to the ceiling, to stick it on there. Yeah, so that was quite a nice touch to finish it off with.
Such a decision on where to put my flower. Am I going to get really creative?
So it did sort of exceed expectations from my perspective. It's a beautiful day out. NGV, you never know what you're going to get. Installations were probably the highlight for me. So
look, I don't think you need to have an extensive background knowledge.
not at all. I had
we
none.
didn't.
I had none.
All I knew
and you
was
had a little bit.
From Deb, and she was like, oh, she's the Japanese dot lady. That was literally her description. Seeing the trees outside as well, and we'd noticed that since the exhibition had started back in December, we've done a few trips into the city for different things.
They wrapped the trees in material.
Wrapped the trees in the polka dot material in pink and white. It looked amazing.
Yeah.
All along St Kilda Road. It was really, really cool.
You could not miss it, and it just made you start asking questions, well, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Would I go again? I've probably seen it now.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't need to go back again, but I'd recommend it.
Oh, definitely. If you get the chance to go, I think it's worthwhile going.
And being that her art's super popular as well, like even her prints are getting, I think, £40,000 and £50,000. I read online. So just her basic prints, all the way up to $10.5 million. So she's definitely an influence worldwide. She has not only the art and the sculptures, but the fashion, and then just all sorts of different media. And somebody who is a massive influence on some of the biggest pop culture icons, that's ever been known.
Yeah.
She wasn't even on my radar.
No.
Until going along to this. So that was quite the education I found.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. It was a good day. Okay. Definitely worth the ticket price, discounted as it was, but still.
Yeah.
No regrets.
That's when you want to go.
Yeah.
I think if you're unsure about something, wait till the run's about to end.
Well,
and then just go, I'll take that.
Cost of living and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we try to be as economical as we can and still get some culture. I think we ticked all the boxes on that one.
Yeah, we did. It was good. So there you have it. I think we give it a big thumbs up.
As the sculpture outside the NGV.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And for more adventures for the Jen and Sean Show.
Stay tuned.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye.